some information in the slides that is not yet published by the EU, but we can share it with within our network.
Yeah, it's only for...
As long as we don't put it somewhere public available.
No, of course. But I know some people were also interested but couldn't join, so then it's nice that we send it.
And conversely, we have one person who's joining from Radio France, who I just invited because she's the best person to be here.
Great, good.
It's a great opportunity for us as well.
Let's see who is. I think we're still missing Mediafin normally. Yeah, Ronja, there you are. Okay.
I think there will be 1 or 2 colleagues of mine joining. It will be Pia and perhaps Sebastian as well.
Okay. I suggest we wait till 5 minutes past 10, and then we just start, and then they can just jump in whenever they want. I think there are indeed like 2-3 persons still joining. But maybe for the introduction, yeah, we noticed that lots of you and mostly during individual conversations, yeah, we're a bit hesitating on how to get European funding, on how it works, how you can best organize your teams towards it, where you need to look, what the rules are, and so on. So we thought maybe it's nice to organize a small session. I think some of you know Mike, but he will introduce himself in a minute. But he's our expert, and so that's why we thought we organize something. So there will be obviously an informational session, and then also certainly a part for the Q&A. It's also important to know that we're looking to some opportunities for our future media hubs as well, but Mike will also mention that in a second. So let us know afterwards if how much you learned, but I'm pretty sure it will be an interesting session from Mike. So Mike, maybe it's a good moment now for you to introduce yourself to the ones you don't know.
Yes, of course. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Mike Matton. I'm a colleague of Sarah in the innovation team of VRT, and my role there is I'm heading the European R&D collaborative projects we are doing. So part of our mission at VRT is to set up these kind of international collaborations on R&D and innovation, to work with partners from all across Europe, and as well to find funding for anchoring this innovations and putting them into practice. So part of my job is also scanning the European programs, looking for funding opportunities that are available, especially then with respect to media and the creative industries around the media organizations, to find opportunities for VRT. And as such, as VRT, we also get many questions on how to get access to these funds. So that's why we decided not to answer to those in an individual basis, but to share some of the intelligence we have with you as a community. So I prepared a presentation today. There is a lot of information still coming in, so it's an ongoing research activity to get all the information together, as the programs from the European Commission have not yet been formally adopted. So that's also why some of the documents and the information that is in the slides is not yet officially published, but they are starting to spread around the information. So that's why it's okay to share all the intelligence we have with you already. I also have to apologize if my slides here and there are still a bit drafty, but that's just because it's a huge work to put all the information together. And I by no means I can cover everything today, so I will focus on a few aspects, and then if there are some other elements where you would like to dive deeper, then we can set up separate conversations on that. So yeah, Sarah, are we set to go? Then let me just
Thank you, Mike.
Share my presentation. All right, so the presentation here is in the next, I'll try to finish within the hour. Don't know, haven't practiced, so I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's quite a bit of information that is in here already. Take you through the new multi-annual financial framework for the period 2021 to 2027, which the European Commission is currently working out and about to formally adopt. And then especially focusing on bits of these programs that are of interest or could be of interest to media companies and to the creative industries. So let's go a little bit of context. So every 7 years, the European Commission designs a new multi-annual financial framework. The one now has finished actually last year in 2020 with I think one of the main programs you might know from the previous framework is the Horizon 2020 framework, which is like the program for research and innovation in the European Commission. But there is also things like Creative Europe. There are things like the Erasmus program for education and so on. So all these programs always have a 7-year term and need to be renewed, or new programs need to be started every 7 years. So right now the Commission has already adopted the framework and the budget for 2021. Well, actually the Commission together with the European Parliament and the European Council, because there is this trialogue going on and they need to decide together. But that formal procedure has mainly finished. So now they have set out the details for the period 2021 to 2027. There was a lot of delay in the adoption last year, and if you followed the news, you might have followed that a bit. There were some major discussions going on the budget, where it should go to. There was, of course, the COVID pandemic, but then there were also countries like Hungary and also the Netherlands who hit the brakes in the discussions, and then they had to iterate a few times over the budget for the new MFF. So that's why everything is coming in late this year, and especially you will see later in the presentation there are a lot of opportunities to submit applications for funding this year, and time this year will be very short to prepare yourself. So that will be a challenge. But of course, they will cover that up over the course of the next years. Some of the programs you might recognize out of the multi-annual financial framework. So there is Horizon Europe, which is mainly the successor of Horizon 2020, the research and innovation program. There is a program called Digital Europe. Digital Europe is also some kind of an innovation program, but this is meant to support the rollout of digital technologies in Europe. So it's more kind of a co-investment program to make sure that the European industry invests in AI technologies, in high performance computing, that they also get the skills on board to cope with the digital transformation that's ongoing. There is a Creative Europe program, which is mainly a continuation of the Creative Europe program that was already there in the previous frameworks. There is the Connecting Europe facility, has mainly to do with making sure that Europe has the network, the internet network capacity, that European citizens have access to the internet, the 5G networks that are being rolled out. That's part of the Connecting Europe facility. There is Erasmus Plus, which is a European program for education and training, which is might also be relevant, and many more. So I will talk about each of those a bit later in the presentation. So the current status that I have set, so the multi-annual budget for 2021-2027 has been adopted. In total, the EU is investing 1,210 billion euros in current price in the European economy, which is, it's a mind-boggling number, this European budget, but there is a lot of money being invested by the European Commission. But the disclaimer, so while the general structure for 2021 to 2027 has been adopted, Every 2 years, the European Commission also works on work programs. So these are dedicated programs with what they actually want to do, what opportunities are there, and they are renewed every 2 years. The drafts are available and are in my slides, but the formal adoption of those work programs is still in place. And here and there are still discussions ongoing that need to be closed. So in my presentation here, the disclaimer: if you see budgets and target dates and deadlines in the presentation, everything is subject to change. I don't expect a lot will change, but as long as things are not formally adopted, you never know. In any case, the adoption is expected by end of May. And these are pretty hard days for the European Commission, because if they don't manage to get this adoption done on time, the whole program is delayed and there might not be any opportunities this year. And then the whole EU budget is kind of problematic for this year. A little bit a dive down in the numbers, and this is an extract of the European budget. I've not put everything on the slide, but only some of the relevant parts. So you hear there is one point on the single market, innovation and digital, where research and innovation is part, and under that you see the Horizon Europe program for research and innovation. You can see here that Europe is investing 93 billion euro in research and innovation, and there's quite some opportunities there as also for media and the creative industries. So that is there. Then there is the European strategic investments, where there is the EU is launching an InvestEU fund with 3 billion euro. I'm not going to to tackle this in the presentation here, but people working on this kind of investment opportunities might have interest to have a deeper look in the opportunities there. There is a Connecting Europe facility, and then I will especially talk a bit about the digital aspect in Connecting Europe facility, the Digital Europe program, which I mentioned earlier. And then as in the third point, in the single markets, there is also the COSME program, which is a program specifically targeting SMEs. So here I've highlighted from this slide, there is 3 of the programs that I will tackle in a bit more detail in my presentation. And then another part of the EU budget is in Area 7, which is on people, social cohesion and values, where there's also 130 billion euros. I've also listed that here because the Erasmus Plus program is in here with 24 billion euro, which tackles education and training. Education and training is not only for schools, but also for companies that want to train their employees, for instance, and offer opportunities for their employees. So there might be interesting stuff in there. The Creative Europe program is also there, where there is about 2 billion euro invested in creative content and content distribution in Europe. So those are the 2 main programs that I've included in the presentation here to tell a little bit more about. Sarah, I think the best is we take questions at the very end. If there is a very urgent question or comment, then feel free to interrupt. But otherwise, I just go on, and then we can take the questions at the end. Something about the EU policy. As you might know, the EU is also setting out quite a bit of policy work and kind of drivers for everything they do. And you might recognize these. There is the EU Green Deal, which had a lot of attention last year, and which is a major policy instrument of the European Commission. And basically, they expect every single action they fund throughout whatever program in Europe to also think about how they will contribute to the policy set up by the Green Deal. But not only this one, there is a Europe Fit for the Digital Age, where they want to empower people and citizens in Europe to make sure that they have access to digital technologies, to make sure that the companies have access to digital technologies, and so on. And there is also Europe that works for people, where the EU wants to be an attractive investment environment, create quality jobs, and then especially give chances to young people and small businesses. So with every project in the EU you set out, if you can identify contributions to these major policy initiatives by the EU, you certainly make a higher chance. And these are transversal, so they are not linked to any specific program. These are just throughout everything. You can find more information. I've tried where I have links to include the links in the slides, so you can have a look and a deeper dive on those topics. And then we go in the different programs. First one is Horizon Europe, and Horizon Europe, successor of Horizon 2020, is the main research and innovation instrument of the European Commission. It's 93 billion euros that's being invested in this, and it has, as it's a very large program, it has many areas and aspects. So each of the bullets you see here is behind that bullet there is a document of hundreds of pages with information calls. Important to know is that most of the EU programs work kind of top-down. So it is the EU sets out the topics, they create a work program with details on what they are expecting, with calls for projects, and then you have to respond to one of the calls. So there are a few areas also in Horizon Europe that work bottom-up, where they say, come to us with your innovative ID and we will look if we can fund it. But most of the Horizon Europe and other European programs is working in this kind of top-down way. So you have to look for an opportunity in one of the work programs and then set up an initiative in there. On the left is the European Defence Fund. I won't talk about that as it's not relevant for what we discuss here. And then on the right is the main part of Horizon Europe with 3 pillars. First pillar is excellent science, is of less relevance here. That's the main pillar to invest in excellent research in Europe. And that's mainly targeted towards academics, universities, research organizations, that want to train their researchers, that want to train PhD students, and create the scientific foundation for future innovations in Europe. There are opportunities here also for companies to participate, but the initiatives are always driven by universities and research organizations. But one example, for instance, Marie Sklodowska-Curie, they set up training networks for researchers, and then you can set up collaborations between universities and companies that want, for instance, to host PhD students in their company, and that wants to offer opportunities for PhD students to perform their PhD inside the R&D department of your company, for instance. So but I think for most of you that will be of less relevance. But know that these kind of structures are possible there. Then there is pillar 2, which is actually the main pillar in Horizon Europe, on global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. It has 7 clusters. The main clusters of relevance for media and creative industries are the second one here on culture, creativity, and inclusive society. And the 4th one on digital industry and space, where there is also a dedicated program targeting the media. The others are of less relevance to us. And then the 3rd pillar is Innovative Europe. This is all about setting up innovation ecosystems in Europe. Ecosystems which allow startups, which offer acceleration opportunities to startups and SMEs, incubation, scaling up of technologies. These kind of calls you will find in the European innovation ecosystems. And then there is also the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, which is launching, and I will tell some details in a few minutes, a KIC, a knowledge and innovation community for the creative and cultural industries, where they put 150 million euro inside to support the growth of the cultural and creative industries in Europe. Deeper dive into the budget. So here you see again the three pillars of Horizon Europe. So the excellent science, which has 25 billion euro. There is the global challenges and European industrial competitiveness, which has most of the budget of Horizon Europe, 53 billion euro, where you see about 2.2 billion euro is going to culture, creativity, and inclusive society. And a fair share of it is going to investments in digital technologies and research on digital technologies, 15 billion euro. On the bottom, you see the Innovative Europe, which has also 13 billion euro, with about 500 million euro going into the innovation ecosystems calls, and 3 billion euro going into the EIT, of which the 150 million euro will be invested in this kick on culture and creative industries. A little bit of background and information before we dive into some details on the opportunities. Everywhere in Horizon Europe, you will see these kind of TRL numbers popping up. TRL stands for Technology Readiness Level, and it's mainly an indicator for technologies where they are on like the innovation roadmap for TRL1 basic principles observed. That's really fundamental scientific research in universities, research labs. Think about, for instance, topics like quantum computing. If you have heard the name, these are there is no practical application for that yet. There's still academic research, and it's going to stay that for quite a few years. And then it goes all the way to TRL9, which is an actual system, software, technology that is fully working in an operational environment. Most of the Horizon Europe funding works between TRLs levels 3, which is an experimental proof of concept that is available for some technology, all the way to TRL level 7 or 8, which is you have a prototype that is kind of integrated in an operational environment. Does not mean you have a business model and the financials are completely ready already. So it can be that you have a system prototype working, but that it's too expensive to run in an actual business, and that the business model needs to be worked on. But at least you have demonstrated that the technology works in an operational environment. So that's kind of important to know, as you will see these numbers if you browse through the different calls. And then a little bit on the different types of projects that Horizon Europe has. There's three main types of projects. First one is the Research and Innovation Action. Research and Innovation Action has a focus on research activities. And with research activities, the EU means activities aiming to establish new knowledge, explore the feasibility or new improved products, technology, process, service of solution. So the focus is on knowledge creation in these kind of projects. And then it says they may include basic and applied research, technology, development and integration, and also testing and validation of prototypes, but not fully blown in an operational environment, but more in a simulated environment. Interesting to know as well, for research activities, the funding rate is 100% in Horizon Europe. So all the costs that you need to make for your project to happen are covered by the EC. There is no need to co-invest or to co-fund the action. If you look on this TRL scale, you will see that most of the calls here go somewhere between TRL levels 3 and 4 and go to TRL levels 5 and 6 on my slide. Second one type is innovation action, and innovation action really means to design new, altered, or improved products. So the focus is less on knowledge creation, is more on product development with innovation actions. And what you can do here in terms of activities, creating prototypes, testing the prototypes, demonstrating the prototypes, piloting the prototypes in an operational environment, large-scale product validation. in these environments and market replication. So these are kind of activities that the EC expects in an innovation action. The funding rate can differ here. Most of the time it will be 100% for non-profit organizations, and then you have to prove that you are not for profit to the EC. For-profit organizations have a funding rate of 70%, so they need to co-invest 30% of the efforts with their own funds. TRL levels you will see here are usually starting before the project somewhere between 4 and 6 and moving towards 6 or 8. Third type of project is coordination and support action. This usually has nothing to do with research and development activities, but is more to build ecosystems and to work with the ecosystem on standardization if it's needed, on dissemination of scientific results, awareness raising about new innovations, networking, coordination support services, setting up policy dialogues with, for instance, the European Commission or other policy stakeholders, design studies for new infrastructure, strategic planning. So these kind of activities are, if you see coordination and support action, then it's mainly these kind of activities. So it's no R&D, it's more building a network and disseminating and working with the network. Funding rate in coordination and support actions is also 100%. Something about the minimum conditions. Also here it is for 99% of the Horizon Europe program. There are exceptions to these minimum conditions, but then they are mentioned if there are exceptions. But in most of the time you have to bring together at least 3 partners from at least 3 different EU or associated countries. And that is for every European program. So they are, of course, the programs are available to all EU countries, but every program has its set of associated countries. And for Horizon Europe, the list is pending completion, so it's not the final list. But you have countries like Albania, Armenia, Bosnia, Faroe Islands, Georgia. Also in Northern Africa, there is like Tunisia, for instance. I think Morocco is on the verge of signing an agreement with the EU. Also, the UK has acceded to the Horizon Europe program, so that even after Brexit, UK organizations have access to most of the Horizon Europe program. Also here there are exceptions, and always read the small print, but for 99% of the cases, this is kind of countries where you can collaborate with. Also Norway, Switzerland are in there, and they have been there for quite a while. They are still there. Then here I've created a little bit of an extract. So for all these clusters in Horizon Europe, we had access to the draft work programs, and I've distilled a bit some of the relevant calls, and here I've summarized them in the table. They're organized by cluster. So cluster 2 is the cluster, as I said, on culture, creativity, and inclusive society. It has 3 destinations. I think there is about 50 or 60 calls for proposals in that work program. You might, if you scan it yourself, you might find some other relevant ones for your organization, but here are what I think are a few of the most relevant ones. There are some calls on civic participation in the public debate, and that's something that's where at least we at VRT think media organizations certainly play a role in the public debate and organizing the public debate. So there's a call on the future of democracy and civic participation. There is a call on media for the democracy. There is a call on politics and the impact of online social networks and new media, social media. In the table, you can also see deadlines. Some deadlines are in 2022, and most of the deadlines in 2022 and in April next year. So there is still some time. But as you will see, for a lot of the calls that have been identified as interesting for the media or creative industries, the deadlines are in 2021, and they are all in the beginning of September. So that means that there is not a lot of time to get prepared and to put some things together. There is also an idea, yeah, the type of project is also mentioned. So RIA is Research and Innovation Action focused on knowledge creation. IA is Innovation Action, which is focused on product development. And you also have an indication of the budget. So the first numbers are the expected budget per project. So that means for a project on future of democracy and civic participation, the EC is expecting projects between 2 and 3 million euro. And then the number between brackets is the total budget the EU has available for this topic. So that means for like this topic, every project has to be between 2 and 3 million euro. They have 9 million euro available, so they will fund between 3 and 4 projects in this particular call. And so that's the way how it works. So there is also a destination 2, which deals with cultural heritage and cultural and creative industries. There is a call on cultural and creative industries as a driver of innovation, which has a deadline this year. There is also a topic on gaming, if you are interested in that. Games and culture and how they shape our society. Also research activities. So also there, the main target is to develop new knowledge. And then there is a third destination on innovative research on social and economic transformations. And there are some opportunities for education and training. And it includes training on, for instance, topics like media literacy. So that's why I've also listed it here. Technologies for education, media literacy. And there is a call on integration of emerging new technologies into education and training. Also deadline this year, also research and innovation action. The third cluster is on civil security for society. Is of less importance to media and the creative industries, but there is one call in the work program which is on disinformation and which some of you might be interested, of course. The catch here is that this call on disinformation is not only targeting media companies, it is targeting media companies, but it is also targeting things like national security agencies, as disinformation is also seen as kind of a danger to disrupt the society from the national security perspective, and they're also looking for ways to cope with that. Deadline also this year, and this is here they are looking for concrete products, innovation action. And then the main cluster, cluster 4, digital industry and space. There are 2 destinations in there that are of relevance. The first one is not specifically addressing media, but it is addressing every sector that is becoming data-driven, and I think every sector in Europe is becoming data-driven. Certainly, this certainly also holds for the media. There are calls on technologies and solutions for compliance, privacy preservation, responsible data operations. There is a call on data management technologies. There is a call on technologies and solutions for data trading, data monetizing, exchange and interoperability, and so on. Also here, deadlines or September this year or April next year. It's a mix between research projects and innovation projects. What you will see here is that, and that's why I've indicated them here as interesting, if you see the total budget available per topic, there is a lot of money invested by the EU in this data topic. So you see there is 51 million euro for the first topic, 30 million for the second, and 51 again for the third topic. So this is a lot more than many of the other calls for proposals that the EU is launching. Second part, so we are still in cluster 4. There is destination 6, which is on human-centered and ethical development of digital and industrial technologies. And there are some calls with specific links to media and the creative industries. There is a call on trust and data sovereignty on the internet. So how to ethically handle personal data and how to bring services to citizens based on data. And it also addresses the media industry, this particular call. There is one on trustworthy open search and discovery. And then this call specifically also mentions content discovery, multimedia discovery, It talks about the future of search and recommendation systems in Europe. So also opportunities for the media there. The two topics here are research and innovation activities again. Then there is a specific call on innovation for media. I'm going to break it down a little bit more further in the presentation, but there's a kind of generic call on media innovation, where the EU is making available 24 million euro. There are a few calls on extended reality, if you're interested in that, and there is a call on AI to fight disinformation as well, where they're putting 12.8 million euro to do research. It's again knowledge driven here, research on how AI technologies can help to fight disinformation. Just looking at the time. Okay. European innovation ecosystems. So also here, this is mainly about developing ecosystems. I've listed a few calls that might be of interest, which is integration of social innovation actors in innovation ecosystems, expanding acceleration ecosystems, scaling up deep tech ecosystems. So that's the type of calls you will find in here as well. Also here, it's a mix between deadlines this year. For this part, they are in October, and this year, or in April next year. And then the final one is this European Institute of Technology, which is going to launch a knowledge and innovation community for cultural and creative industries. They have organized a webinar on it already, but need to formally publish the call. It will probably close somewhere in April next year, and they are making available 150 million euro to set up this huge initiative. This is typically initiatives that brings together 40, 50 partners from all across Europe. In the next few slides, but I'm going to skip a lot of those just in the sake of time, but you can read them on your own. We will share the presentation, but they bring a little bit of details for some of the calls. So here there is this Democracy 0106 Media for Democracy, which was here also in my list. And then you will see the EC publishes a text which gives some information of what they expect from a project like this. So, for instance, demonstrate how citizens and policymakers can contribute to a healthy and reinvigorated democracy through media, and how media plays a role in this. Enhance citizen participation and decision making. Also here, how to make media content accessible to enhance the participation of citizens in the public debates and in the democratic systems in your country, and so on. So here there is the call on politics and the impact of some social and online networks. So here they want to, it's always knowledge focused, so they want to kind of research on how social media are changing our democratic processes. These kind of topics are in here. There is this call in cluster 3 on disinformation, which I mentioned, which also, as I said, targets European law enforcement agencies, but also targets media organizations to together combat disinformation, as it's seen also as a national and an EU threat, disinformation. That's why they've included this in the work program. Then there is this call I mentioned on trust and data sovereignty on the internet, which goes on increased trust, privacy, and user control when accessing personal data, trusted electronic identity ecosystem, and they want to set up an ecosystem of European top internet innovators, which can realize this vision. Trustworthy open search and discovery. This is the one I mentioned about the future of recommendation systems, how they work, how they better serve users' needs, how content discovery can be improved, and so on. I think this also contains quite a few relevant topics for our sector. Then there is this call on innovation for media, which has two parts. One is to foster the development of advanced solutions for creation, distribution, and consumption of new media products, with or without extended reality. The call is having a heavy focus on extended reality, but it's not the only topic in here. And then the second part of this call, so you have to choose one of the two bullets here, is they want to create a European VR Media Lab. And you can find details further in the text, but the European Commission wants to set up a European Media Lab for virtual reality technologies. Another one that might be of interest, there is this call on a research call on AI to fight disinformation. It has two parts, and also here you have to choose one of the two topics. First one is AI solutions to combat disinformation for media professionals, so tools for newsrooms, fact-checking organizations, and so on. Second part is AI solutions against disinformation that target citizens. So how to involve citizens in the process of combating disinformation, how to increase awareness with citizens on the disinformation, how to increase their media literacy skills to deal with disinformation, and so on. So these two topics are there. And then finally, a few words on this EIT, this KIC for cultural and creative industries. Also here, there is like a link to a document on the bottom of the slides. Feel free to read it. There is no time to mention everything. But the European Commission wants to set up a knowledge and innovation community for culture and creative industries, which allow to kind of synchronize all across Europe and to create an ecosystem with business opportunities for startups, innovators, and existing SMEs in the community to innovate. In the end, strengthening the EU position in cultural and creative industries. I've included the roadmap here. So the plan is that they will launch the call in June this year. And it will close in March. There was an information webinar. I've included the link. If you're interested, you can always have a look at the webinar. Horizon Europe current status. So this I said, so the work plan is about to be formally adopted end of May. There is a network of national contact points. I see a typo here, national contact points. The link to reach your own national contact point is here. They are available for any questions, any help you might need to prepare a project proposal or for any information you want. So you will find the names and contact details on that website. Okay, speeding up a bit, the Digital Europe program is focused on building strategic digital capacities for the EU, facilitating the deployment of digital technologies. It has a budget of around 9 million euro. It will boost investments in supercomputing, artificial intelligence, which I think is the main target here for our sector, cybersecurity. And it's also supporting the building of advanced digital skills and wants to make sure the digital technologies are rolled out all across Europe. You see here a bit the budget distribution. So there is 2.5 billion euro for artificial intelligence. There is 700 million euro for building advanced digital skills in Europe. And there is 1.3 billion for the wide use of digital technologies across the economy. A few of the interesting elements that are there in the next work program for 2021 and especially 2022 is European Commission wants to launch a data space for media where they will put 10 million euro in, and the idea is to build a data space where media companies and stakeholders on the value chain can easier exchange data with one another. And it doesn't really list a specific type of data that we want to exchange, but you can think of information between newsrooms that help with fact checks of things. You can content exchange, personal data exchange if you set up those kind of topics. You can try to use the data space for reinventing the business models for advertising, for instance. So it leaves it quite open what kind of data you want to put in the data space for media, but there is a huge opportunity to put something together on a European level that allows public service and commercial media operators to easier collaborate with one another and makes it easier to exchange media data between different stakeholders on the value chain. So that's there for media. There is a bit of information in my slides. I will let it to you to read it, and you can always come back if you have questions to us or to the national contact points. EC is also launching a data space for cultural heritage, where they also want to build a huge database with cultural heritage assets. If you have heard of Europeana, this is kind of a successor to Europeana, not only including audiovisual content, but also, for instance, 3D scans of architectural buildings, 3D models of cultural heritage, and so on. So protection of cultural heritage, and including that in a data space to make it easier to exchange these assets between organizations. Another one that's interesting, I think, is the European Digital Media Observatory, which is a center of excellence for digital media and coping with disinformation. EDMO has been launched by European Commission and is frequently organizing open calls for especially media organizations and academics to create a network and to create excellence centers, local excellence centers for coping with disinformation. At VRT, we just got the news that we won one of the previous EDMO calls together with consortium consisting of Belgian and Dutch partners focusing on the Dutch language. But there is a new opportunity for people who want to create with a deadline somewhere next year. That is, if you're working on this information, certainly have a look at that opportunity. There is a bit of information here as well on the slides, and as soon as it's available from the European Commission, it would also be published on their website. And then there is the concept of digital innovation hubs, and digital innovation hubs are local hubs in Europe that help ecosystems and industrial sectors to digitize their sector. The call worked in two steps. So there was first a pre-selection by the member states in Europe that happened last year. At VRT, we submitted a proposal there for a digital innovation hub for the creative and cultural industries in Belgium that was pre-selected. And there are over 200 of those candidate digital innovation hubs selected. You can find them on this platform. If you're interested in this kind of services they might offer for you on digital transformation, you can find all of the pre-selected hubs in this database. And for every country in Europe, there is certainly a digital innovation hub in your neighborhood that might be relevant to connect to from your side. Okay, the Connecting Europe facility, which is a digital program, aims to support and catalyze investments in digital connectivity and infrastructure, so topics like 5G in the internet. There is not a lot of information published yet. I've just included this short video, which gives a bit of insight on the topics that will be inside there. Hope it works. So as you can see, this is mainly of interest if you're active in the domain of 5G and the delivery of new citizen services based on 5G connectivity. And it for sure offers quite some opportunities for media to deliver services through 5G and to use the 5G connectivity to develop services. But more details have to be published. Oops. Okay, next program, Creative Europe. Here I haven't seen too many draft texts, so I have no access to the specific work programs yet for 2021 and 2022. But Creative Europe program is mainly going to be a continuation of the previous Creative Europe program. So if you were already familiar with Creative Europe in the past, then for sure you will recognize the different actions that they will launch for. It's mainly continuation with some improvements and changes here and there. It's split into 3 pillars. There's a pillar on culture, which I'm not going to tackle here. It's mainly the cultural industries, excluding the audiovisual industries, because the audiovisual industries and the audiovisual sector is targeted by the media program in Creative Europe. And there is also the cross-sector program, which also has some interesting opportunities. Budget here is 2.4 billion euro. This is the media program, which has 14 actions. There are actions on content development, and this is a typical continuation for what was there in the previous Creative Europe program. So it's on European co-development, slate development, and also TV and online content development. There are projects on audience development, topics like networks of cinemas, film festivals, and so on. Also on subtitling, so that's cultural content that is available across more EU member states. So that's one of the main targets also of the European Commission, to make sure that every single bit of European content is available to every European citizen, independent of their language, independent of their disabilities. So they also support this through actions in the Creative Europe program. And then there are some calls also on business development, mainly on talent skills, market networks, EU film distribution, and innovative business models. I have no details yet on any of those topics, so I hope they will be published by next month, and then we can certainly share the links if you don't find them. Just know that they have pre-announced some deadlines for 2021, and also those again are very short. So quite a few of those topics will have a deadline in August this year, and for some other ones it will be somewhere in October, depending on the topic. Finally, on Creative Europe, there is this cross-sectorial strand where I have identified 2 types of actions that might be of interest to this community. There is the concept of creative innovation labs that they have tested out in the previous Creative Europe program, and which actually aims to bring new technologies and content makers together to experiment with new technologies for content creation. At VRT, we have one project running in this Creative Innovation Lab, but that was like a pilot project for this program. The EU will now invest a lot more in new projects. They are making available 6.3 million euro in the next 2 years, and they will fund 10, with that money, they will fund 10 of those Creative Innovation Labs. So they will each get 630,000 euro available to do experiments with new technologies. Funding rate is 60% here, so you have to co-invest 40% of the content development. And you need to bring together at least 3 organizations from at least 3 countries. Deadline here, also 2021, will be 5th of October, also pending changes once it's published. And also interesting, they will also launch, and this is a new part of Creative Europe, actually, partnerships for quality journalism, with 2 types of actions where I don't have any details yet, but it's on common business transformations and common journalism projects. Here you need to bring together 3 organizations from at least 3 countries. They're making available 7.6 million euro, and they're going to fund 10 projects. So that means around 760,000 euro per project. Have no idea on the funding rate here. It might also be 60%, but it might be different. In Creative Europe, it really depends from call to call what the funding rate is. Deadline here is extremely short, so will be provisional date is 26th of August. Finally, I think this is the final program that I've included in my slides, is the Erasmus Plus program, which is EU's program to support education, training, youth and sports development, estimated budget of 26 billion euro. And also here you see the policies of the EU on social inclusion, on Green Deal and the green and digital transitions, promoting young people's participation in democratic life. You see them coming back. These kind of policies come back in every European program. Erasmus Plus has 6 domains. It's on school education, which of course is less relevant. It's on vocational training. One area of interest here is adult education, which includes formal education, but also non-formal and informal education. And then here you need to think of, they have opportunities for things like job shadowing, traineeships as part of education, and they fund these kind of, especially if you offer these opportunities across borders in Europe, you can get funding for these kind of adult education programs. Also targets higher education, which also is not relevant here. And then there are specific programs for youth and for sports. There are 3 types of actions. Only the first 2 are of relevance. First one is for individuals to apply. So it's not companies who can apply, it's individuals that have to apply, but they can apply to get support from the EC on courses, trainings, job shadowing, traineeships. They can apply to the EC, or they can apply to consortia that have been selected through this cooperation among organizations. So there is this cooperation among organizations as well, where you can build strategic partnerships, knowledge alliances, sector skills alliances, capacity building projects in higher education and youth. And then the third type of action is more relevant to policymakers, less relevant to industry. I listed here the provisional deadlines. So there is the youth program, which has separate calls, separate deadlines, both targeting individuals and corporation. Deadlines are October, November this year. Same with Erasmus Plus, which also targets individuals and corporations. The calls will be launched somewhere in June. Deadlines also with the question mark here, I don't know why, but 5th of October and 3 of November. This is again the link to the Erasmus Plus website, where as soon as things are adopted, all the information will be published. So that's it. That's a 1-hour run through some of the European funding opportunities. I hope it was insightful for you and ready to take a few questions now.
The questions in the chat. One is from Mathieu, but he just left. But maybe I want to take his place and then briefly talk to you. It's about 3 partners you mentioned, Mike.
Yes.
So he said maybe you can see 3 balanced investments. So do you need to look at money, time, workforce, or would it be possible to design a project with 1 leading partner and 2 partners with less commitment, depending on their capacity to invest or work? So that's the first question.
In theory, it's possible to also build a project with 1 leading partner and 2 partners with less commitment. But I think there is a rule of thumb that not more than 50% of the budget should go to 1 single organization. So you have to keep some kind of balance in your consortium. It's not a fixed rule, but it's it's a good rule of thumb not to kind of give 80% of the budget to 1 single organization, as an example.
Okay, and then Loic, you also had a question. Maybe you can ask it yourself.
Was just in Horizon, just regarding types of projects, you mentioned that RIA projects are more focusing on building knowledge and more down in tier scale.
Mhm.
So thus media corporates or business bodies are entitled to submit projects in these types of projects, or is it more often led by research centers or research labs from academics?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. You see that most of the project in these RIA calls are led by a university or a research organization, but for sure, media companies, if the call targets something for media, have to be part of the consortium, because the European Commission really wants to have a multidisciplinary consortium, and researchers need the knowledge of, for instance, media organizations to kind of put the focus on their research activities. So if there is one keyword that you should include when building a consortium, that's multidisciplinarity. So making sure you have all the skills and competences on board to realize an innovation. If that answers your question.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question, Tom from Medavenue? Mike, thank you very much for the clear and insightful presentation first. Being busy with innovation in a small company like Mediafin, for me, just a practical question. It's unclear to me how, if we want to step into a European program, for me it's unclear how can we as a small media company, how do we do that? Do we take contact with other larger organizations, with university, on a pure practical side of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It certainly helps to keep an open dialogue with research organizations. That's at least what we at VRT are trying to do, is to have open dialogues with, and then especially the academics in Flanders, like Leuven University, Ghent University, and make sure that we from time to time align our priorities to each other, and then we identify together if there is an opportunity to develop a project. For sure, smaller companies with less capacity can certainly not coordinate a proposal, so you would have to find somebody willing. But there are networking events, and COVID has kind of restricted that opportunity now, where you can go to. It's a one day. Typically, they are even in Brussels. So for Belgian partners, it's easy to go there. You can just give a 3-minute pitch, state your organization, say, "Oh, we are interested in new business models for media, for instance, and we are happy if you have opportunities to connect to your project." And then that can give you some opportunities or dialogues to talk with people.
So, but the network is the clue. The
network is the clue. Yeah, also for us. It's at VRT we have the capacity to coordinate some projects, but I can assure you it's a huge effort to take.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
And we cannot always do that, so we also have to look for others who are willing to coordinate an initiative.
But there's not something like, and is then the national contact point the right way to connect with the European Commission, or what's the okay.
Yeah. So in Flanders, there are 2 organizations that can really help you. That is the national contact points, which are organized by Vlaio in Flanders. Yeah. And there is VLEVA, which is the Flemish European Connecting Agency, and they help you to find funding opportunities for your ideas. If you have an idea, they can go through your ideas and list what I've done today, but in more detail, what kind of European funding is available for your ideas.
VLEVA and the NCP.
Yeah, and they frequently organize events and webinars now around. So it's also a way to get connected. But indeed it needs investment into a network. That's something so that people think about you if they are developing something. Yeah. That's important.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
Hey, I have one question. First of all, thank you, Mike. Very well covered and excellent presentation on the topic. And did you already have something on your mind where we could cooperate as the organizations around this meeting in here?
Yeah, it's different for everyone. One thing I see appearing throughout many of the calls is, for instance, the topic of disinformation, and there are many opportunities to connect if we want to develop something in the disinformation opportunities. There are Horizon Europe calls. There is this call in Digital Europe, and it's going to come back. So for sure, we can connect there. Another topic, and also there at VRT, we need to think, is this data space for media. So how do you set up a data space to facilitate collaboration between media companies? Maybe this is even, at least with the public service broadcasters, we can take up this discussion with the EBU and kind of organize a brainstorm activity with them to see how can we create this data space, as there is a huge funding available to create that. It's 10 million euro, is not a few money to make that possible. So that is certainly an area which we can investigate. But I have to admit, for this data space, also we at VRT have not really properly brainstormed yet on what that could mean for media. But happy to engage in a group discussion on that.
Yeah, I see there's room for cooperation. So let's have a round table or something and figure out if there is something we can do together.
Hi, the EBU already looked into data pool things, and I think they put that on hold because of legal issues. But I certainly is an opportunity if there is a European project to put that up again and look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, that can for this can maybe be a next step, is to reach out to the EBU, have a dialogue with them, and then put kind of a workshop together. Ideally, this is a workshop you with people who are interested. You can do in person somewhere, as I hate brainstorming in Teams windows, but we will see if needed. We can do something virtually, but it makes the whole thing more difficult to at least that's my opinion on that.
Yes, but I really think as it could be a smart move for us to gather more research lab and media labs from academics in our community, because it will level up the opportunities to go on R&D projects with them in the future, because it will spread. It will create opportunities internationally together with media labs from other countries. Because, for instance, for now we are all in our own national network or a regional network with academics and research lab and so on. Because, for instance, we have. In Wallonia, I know already 2 main media and cultural and creative research labs from universities that I think will be happy to have a conversation more structured with corporates like us. Yeah. So maybe it's a smart move for the Culture Media Labs to create this sub-community about R&D and discussion, and to have a continuous discussion with these research labs and media labs from academics that are searching for corporate collaboration and to source our problematics to orient their research and their applied research. So the smart move.
Leute shouldn't it must not be like limited to like academic search, but could also include more startups, like a big startup pool, or even user research. For example, we're doing a lot of user research most recently, so maybe it could be a good way to engage.
But what I've seen, because I've worked my network for the past 2 years in this academics field, that they have a huge teams and huge skills to enter this type of project, and they are really busy at doing this, so they can really help us to enter this RIA types of project in the Horizon Europe programs and so on. So
maybe a follow-up question on what Loïc said to Mike. Mike, is there a general pattern in the structure of those projects? Is there what mainly the motor or the main driver in a project? Is that a research institute, or is it more a company? Is there a kind of a general pattern in the structure of a good project?
It really depends, of course, if it's a research project or an innovation project. With the research projects, it's one or a few research organizations that are investigating not only technologies, but for instance, on disinformation. Part of the research is on, for instance, the psychological aspect of disinformation, how people gets triggered by disinformation campaigns, and what happens psychologically in their minds, those kind of research. So it's kind of setting up this multidisciplinary research, and then the ecosystem around the research by, for instance, media organizations, companies that want to make products for media organizations, and those drive it. In research projects, it's more experimental, of course. So you're not working on one single product that will, because you cannot really you're not yet in a position to predict we need this kind of product and that product needs this kind of features. But in innovation action, you can do that more. Typically there you have one or two solution providers mainly who really drive the innovation and who kind of always are focused on product development. And even though and the sides of that project are experimental technologies, think for speech recognition in the AI domain, or natural language processing, or face detection, or whatever you need for like the prototype you need. And these technologies might not be 100% ready yet, because they also are developed. But at least there is this driving one or two companies who really drive the product development. And in my experience and in our experience, if you have a company in your consortium that really is able to drive this innovation, then the whole project is kind of organized around it. Doesn't mean that that company should be the coordinator of the project itself, because coordination of a project is an overhead, and you have to be organized to get that overhead. Of course, it's most of the time 100% funded, but even then you need like the skills and capacities to do that. But at least you have to put those companies who want to innovate in the driving seat of your project. That's an important parameter for a consortium to work. And many projects fail just because they fail to have this kind of really innovative companies in the driving seats. It's especially for the innovation projects one of the problems the EU currently has with that. So if we get questions to join a consortium, that's one of the things we certainly look at, whether we want to join or not. Is there a company that really wants to drive product development, and is that product development something that is of interest, of course, to VRT in our case?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I suppose the EC demands a lot of administrative work and reporting, or are they quite easy on that?
If you are well organized, you can reduce the overhead. But if it's your first time in a European project, yes, then you have to learn a lot.
Okay.
But it's not too bad if you know what to do. But yes, you have to keep timesheets, for instance, on projects. Yes, you have to document what you do, but that's also mainly because they say these projects are funded by public money. We want to give something back to society, so we want you to document what you have learned in the projects. And yes, you can see for your organization that might be overhead, because it's not of direct benefit to your organization to document it, but the EC expects to give something back to the community and to the EC.
Which is logic, eh?
Which is logic, yes.
Mike, maybe back to the question of Loic, isn't that something that BTF from EBU is also looking at? Because I thought it was kind of similar of what Loic just proposed, right?
Yeah, I've raised the topic there already with limited interest, but maybe we should do a formal pitch of the topic. But then we have to be a bit prepared and bring in a few ideas already of what the media data space could do.
Yeah.
And we have a few ideas at VRT already of what that could do. The only thing is they need to be properly thought through. They're premature ideas, so to say. But yes, that's a good suggestion.
Anyone
All
else?
Right.
Or are we?
Maybe a question to Sarah. I see some kind of interest in this kind of projects. Is there a possibility to coordinate some things, or is that a dumb question?
It depends on what you mean. We're now looking to some of the projects that Mike mentioned to see if we can do something together with Future Media Apps. But I don't think it would be possible that everyone gets some funding from it. So that's something different. And we also still don't know where we will end. We're just still in the investigation phase. So yes, our members will be involved, but obviously it's impossible to get the costs divided by everyone without the funding. What we could do, that's also what Loic suggested, is think of maybe a sort of a community where we look together at these different R&D projects, so like sort of a sixth hub, but I don't know how fifth hub, sorry, how interesting it would be for you guys and how Mike looks towards it. But we could bring that together, that kind of group who always looks to the different opportunities and where we get the conversation started. But where you could perhaps get more funding yourself then as well. But feel free to add any other idea. Tom, if you have ideas on how we could more collaborate together.
No, as I said, for me and like Mike confirmed, I think it takes a lot of time to find your way in this kind of structures. So if we bundle our time or our or efforts, maybe that can lead to something that's more views for every one of us. But yeah, it's a question of priorities, and it's a question of there are only 24 hours in a day. But I don't have the idea at this moment. But I think as Loic mentioned, I think there together we're strong, something like that. But I don't have an idea on this at the moment. But maybe it's something we have to keep in mind.
But maybe two things. As VRT, of course, we are organized and we are gaining a lot of intelligence, and we're always willing, like we do today, to share the intelligence we have with the community around us. So there we don't keep anything to ourselves. Of course, VRT as an organization is also participating in the programs, and for that we are kind of developing our strategic plan and the topics of interest for VRT. And I can name a few. Disinformation is certainly one. A proper handling of personal data is certainly a topic for VRT. And this then defines what kind of activities that VRT will spin up. Also the organization of the networks around us. And for sure, we can also at some point present what are the strategic priorities for VRT, especially looking towards research and innovation, and maybe others can do the same. And then from there, you can identify synergies. And if there is a very good synergy, then that's a basis for constructing something. And then that's independent of where you are going to be looking for funding, because you have seen there's those many programs in Europe. There are programs in, if it's with Belgian partners, their project in Flanders or in Belgium, there are opportunities. And then you can first kind of handshake on a topic and then look for a funding opportunity to get that topic spinned up. That's the best way to work.
Just one last question, maybe, because there is some organization here that are really oriented on promoting startups and working with startups and so on. Does usually these funded projects involve some startups in the consortiums, or is it not a good idea for them to go on these types of projects with big corporates and research labs and so on?
Startups you don't often see. Scale-ups, yes, but real startups are yeah, there is still quite a lot of risk. What the EC often does, and a few of those programs I have presented here, I had no time to present all the details, of course. The EC expects the projects to organize open calls for startups. For instance, in this topic on trustworthy open search and discovery, on the future of search and recommending systems, there is a topic in there. The EU is investing, I think, 8 million euro, and they expect 30 or 40% of that money to be handed out to startups through the organization of open calls by the project itself. And we are running a project like that at VRT. The Stadium project, for instance, is a project like that. So there is a core working by a project with stable partners, and then the project has to organize the startup ecosystem around it. And there are quite a few of the calls in Horizon Europe that have this kind of structure, or that have to organize this kind of structure. And that's a better way, I think, for startups to participate in the project, because then they can engage in shorter duration projects, because typical Horizon Europe projects last 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, and that's a very long period for a startup to engage. They usually don't have kind of that far looking ahead.
And does, just one last question, does money coming from Horizon projects and Horizon funding and so on, does the bodies that are participating in the project, does the bodies have to consider this money as unofficial state help? As a legal perspective, you know, if you...
No.
If no, okay.
No, I think because it's not considered state aid because it is handed out through some kind of tendering process. Because there is a work program, there is a specific call, everybody can participate with the same conditions, and then the best ones are selected. And because of this very open process to select the winning companies, I don't think, but I have to double check, but I don't think it is considered as state aid in this case.
Okay.
But I know that many national programs are considered as state aid. So, but also there frequently there is not kind of this very heavy structure on top with a specific tender, an open call. It's more a broad call.
Okay.
But I have to double check that question, but that's what I think it is at this moment.
For example, the Stadium, startups will be getting grants for doing things, don't have to consider the grants as state.
I think so.
Okay.
Maybe at the end of the call, I would like to raise the hand, as we are doing research like on a qualitative and explorative level, but on a smaller scale. So if anyone interested in like engaging, collaborating on this, like we're doing some innovation research and like partnering up with the other one, developing a new product out of it, yeah, feel free to reach out. We would be definitely interested and collaborating, so that's something for you guys.
Okay, I think we need to round up, but let it all sink in a little bit. And if you have any more ideas or questions, then obviously you can share them with Mike, Loic, and myself, and then we'll see what we can do. And then a big thank you to you, Mike, for giving this very interesting presentation and taking the time, because I know you're very busy to prepare it. So we will share everything later this week with you guys. So hope it was fruitful.
Super. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See you.